Welcome back. We're back for the rest of John Davis's tour of the other side, where we get to ask questions on his phenomenal, way farther than most can ever go and come back experience. Welcome to Soul Spy University, where your souls can run free and your minds are free to expand. Today, we'll venture where most haven't gone before in the special series of John Davis's tour of the other side. But first, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so I can keep existing to put out content like this for you. And also join our family. And also, if you would like to, there's a donation link in the description box. If you ever want to put out good energy and help me put out more of this content for you, no little is too little, and I'm forever grateful from my heart. John has the most amazing story, most physical account of the other side I've ever heard. And one of my favorites, and catch part one if you haven't already. That was most of his story so far. And now we're in part two to resume wherever you'd like, John. It's simply
Okay,
phenomenal.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, I love sharing my story. One thing I wanted to tell your audience too about that I forgot to mention in part one is on the other side, it's very much like Earth, except that there's no negativity, there's no war, there's no hunger, there's no racism. It's like a paradise. It's like Earth if it could be perfect. And something that people have always asked me is what do you do there? Well, in addition to learning and growing and still developing, you can do anything. Anything you like to do on Earth, you can do on the other side. If you like to paint, you can paint. If you like to write, you can write. You can go to music festivals. You can go hiking. There's anything that you want to do, you can do over there. It's absolutely a paradise. And to give your audience kind of an idea of, because I every time I try to share my story, it never comes across what it was really like. I don't have words to describe how much love is there. You can feel God's love for you. You can feel how much he cherishes us. And what I don't understand is you don't feel that here on earth. And I don't know why that is. It was it's such an extraordinary experience that when I came back and realized what had happened, that I actually had what we now call a near death experience. I went through a horrible, horrible depression. It was about 2 months. I could not understand how was I going to make it here, knowing how beautiful it is and how perfect it is on the other side. So that was a hard part. It was kind of bittersweet knowing about the other side and then being here. But I'll get to that in a minute also. But another thing that was so wonderful that our animals also cross over. They make the transition just like we do. And one of the things my guide showed me was a beautiful field where the animals seem to be, where they tend to keep the animals until we get back. But they showed me two of my cats I had growing up, and they both died from cancer. We had to have them put to sleep because cancer had just gone throughout their bodies. And he showed me that they were young again and perfect and happy, just like when we cross over, we're young again. We're all in our 30s. So it was neat to see that our animals are there. And this was the last part of my near death experience. My guide took me to what I can only describe as a wildflower field. It had rolling hills, green grass, just beautiful, gorgeous flowers everywhere. And my guide left, and I was standing there by myself essentially. And all of a sudden, a man showed up in front of me, and he had brown hair. I could see his hands. He was wearing a white robe with a golden sash around the waistline, and he had gold colored sandals on that went up to his calves, it laced up to his calves. And he was different than all the other people I saw before because he was so bright. There was so much light coming from his face that I couldn't make out any features. And I automatically knew that this person was Jesus, his lifetime on earth as Jesus. This is the person that was in front of me. And he spoke to me. He said, "You must tell them there is no death." And the very second he said that, I was back in my body in the operating room and with the surgeon and the nurses looking down at me. And I said, because I didn't, at that time, I didn't know where I was. I was just going with the flow where my guide was taking me on this kind of journey on the other side. I didn't know where I was. So I thought the surgeon may have been able to tell me what happened. I asked him, what just happened? And he said, "We lost you." And I said, "How long was I gone?" Because to me, it felt like I was on the other side for an hour or two, everything that they were showing me. But he said, "We lost you for 7 minutes." So in 7 minutes on Earth, that's how long it took them on the other side. And here's something that I learned. The other side doesn't have time like we do. On Earth, we have linear time. You know, all of our everything is based on how many hours you have. You've got this time, you've got that time to be somewhere, you've got to be here at that time. Well, time doesn't exist on the other side. And something that they explained to me is that when you have a lifetime on Earth, let's say you live to be 80 or 90, like that gentleman was who I saw cross over in that orientation center, to people on the other side, a lifetime is weeks or months. It's not like it is for us. A lifetime here, you know, we could be here for 80, 90 years or longer. But on the other side, a lifetime is very short. So in the process of grief, when we lose somebody here on earth, we're not going to see them again for kind of a long time if we live a long lifetime here. But from the perspective of the other side, grief, they still miss us when they cross over. But for them, their perspective is that, oh, we're going to see that person in a very short period of time. So their grief is different than ours is here.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. And the one thing I want to tell your listeners, the most important thing that I learned was that hope is absolutely extraordinary because there is so much for us on the other side. And whoever you lose in your lifetime, even if you, God forbid, lose a child, everybody is there on the other side. You don't really lose anybody. In the purpose of life, the reason we come here is to learn and to grow. And oftentimes, we learn the most when we go through something that's painful. So even though we come into life, nobody has a perfect life here. If we wanted to have a perfect life, we would have stayed on the other side. We wouldn't come in. So we come in here and we learn things when things are tough. You never seem to learn anything when everything is going perfectly. So we come into life, we learn lessons, we go through hard times, but on the other side of that hard time, we've learned and we've developed and we've grown. And that's one of the reasons why we come here. So the first thing is to learn lessons, to learn and to accomplish and achieve the goals that we set for ourselves. But we also come in to help our fellow human being, to try to make a difference with your life that you helped others, because that's what seems to make a difference on the other side. Nobody asks on the other side, you know, what your achievements were, what you accomplished, what you achieved. That doesn't seem to matter. What matters to them is what you became, what you learned, what you grew into. So that was my experience.
Oh my God, that was absolutely extraordinary. With the people on the other side that have already passed on, do you
Mhm.
feel they could see us?
Oh yes.
Wow.
I don't know how it works, but they have the ability to see beyond the veil. There's kind of a veil that separates both worlds. And on our side, on the earth side of the veil, it's very thick
Mhm.
because the vibration here is much slower. It's thicker on the earth. On their side, the veil is very thin. So all they have to do is concentrate and focus, and they can see us.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When my wife's dad died about 8 years ago, we went to the hospital. Everyone was there, and when he crossed over, something happened, and I had an extraordinary event happen. The night that he died, he came to me in a dream,
Mm.
and he said, "Everything is going to be okay. We're all going to be together again.
Mm.
Please tell my family I'm okay." And I woke up my wife and I said, "Sherry, oh my gosh, I just saw your dad." So they have the ability to see us all the time, whereas we can't see them.
Okay.
And something that was really interesting, they can hear our prayers. When we pray, they can hear us. So I'm always talking to my father-in-law and my mother-in-law because I know they can hear us.
Mhm.
And I know that when my lifetime is finished, I'll get to go back home again and we'll all be together.
Mhm.
And one of the things that people do on the other side that they love to do is just be with family and friends and just hang out and just be together.
Did you ever wonder why you didn't have the reunion?
That's a good question. I don't know why. I think because I don't even know how they knew I was coming.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could have gotten everybody on the other side there as quickly as they needed to because my time was limited. They had to show me all this in a really short period of time.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually have a chance to see anybody like my grandparents or aunts or uncles that had passed. I just didn't have time. I think that's why they just showed me that one gentleman's reunion so I could tell people that yeah, reunions are real. They exist. And when you pass, everyone's there that who crossed before you. So I
Did you
think that's why
wonder,
they did that.
did you wonder while you were there, why you didn't have one?
No, I didn't actually. I was just going along as my guide took me. And
Yeah.
something that's interesting about that somebody asked me, how did they do that? And we didn't walk anywhere. There wasn't enough time to walk. Um, we didn't fly. There was no flying. There was no walking. So I don't really know how he took me to all these different places.
Yeah.
But the one thing it seemed like, you know what a college campus is like? They have all the different buildings. They've got your science building, your English or humanities building. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was on, or he was showing me a part of the other side that people go to learn
Mhm.
because there was such an emphasis on learning.
Mhm.
Anything you wanted to learn, you can go and learn. Um, but yeah, I didn't have a sense that I didn't even have a sense that I had died. I didn't even know what had happened until afterwards. So everything he was showing me as we were going along this tour,
Yeah.
I was just taking it all in. I didn't know what was really happening.
Yeah. Did you ever wonder after that, gee, why didn't I get a reunion? No.
Yes. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
wondered all that.
Wow.
It took me, I would say, the better part of a day and a half because I talked to my mom because I didn't know what had happened.
Yeah.
My mom turned me onto a book by Raymond Moody
Uh-huh.
called Life After Life.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
read that. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
everything that I experienced wasn't just a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. What I experienced was real.
Yes.
That's what the afterlife is like.
Yes.
And so that started me on this obsession my whole life to learn about the other side and to be able to share with people what happens so that there's no more fear.
Mhm.
And when he said to me, "You must tell them there is no death,"
Mhm.
he wasn't asking me. He didn't say, "You know what, John, would you please go ahead and share this?" It was like, "No, we're telling you
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. Because the experience wasn't for me. It was for everybody for me to share it with.
Yeah.
And the one thing I don't understand even today is why did they share that with me? I don't have I'm not like you. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't even have a website. So you would think they would tell someone like you or Oprah or somebody who has a following to get this message out. So that's something I've always thought about, and I've always wondered why didn't my because I have all my grandparents are there, and they were there when I was 21. So I don't know why they didn't show me them. I think maybe there just wasn't enough time.
Mhm.
Everything seemed to happen so quickly.
Mhm.
They just wanted to show me that the other side is real. There's a reason for life. We come in to learn lessons, um, and lessons can be painful, and
Mhm.
that's how we learn because the other side doesn't have any kind of pain.
Yeah.
And there are many people who don't want to come to Earth
Mhm.
because it is so hard here.
Yeah. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. In fact, now it brings me to a question that I was going to ask later, but do you think you lived on other planets?
Oh, yeah. We all have.
Okay, cool.
Yep. We all
Cool.
have. Something that's interesting, I'll just kind of throw this out.
Yeah.
Remember when my guide was showing me the past lifetimes?
Yes.
Well, I had a really hard time believing that just
Mhm.
because of how I was raised.
Mhm.
So a couple months after that, I went to see a hypnotherapist because I had heard that you can access memories. So I went to see one and I wanted to see if past lifetimes were real. And you know what? They were. You can actually see past lifetimes when you go into a hypnotic state.
Mhm.
And that's when I realized, okay, what they showed me, that was true. Past
Mhm.
lifetimes really are real. And you
Wow.
can have lifetimes on other planets. Many, there's the planets, there are so many planets that have life that you can have a lifetime on. It's unlimited. It's absolutely unlimited. And that makes you think about what is God? How can a being have created all of this? It's just extraordinary. And you can get your mind just can't seem to grasp it all.
Yeah.
And I think one of the hardest things about the whole experience was you kind of feel cut off from God when you're on Earth.
Mhm.
Earth is like being in a battle, in a
Mhm.
war, and you're in a foxhole without a radio. You
Yeah.
feel like you're cut off. And
Yeah.
on the other side, you don't feel like that.
Ah,
You can feel God and how much He really cherishes us. So that was one of the neatest things about it. And it was also one of the hardest things because when I came back into my lifetime, I thought, how in the world am I going to make it here 70, 80, 90 years in the future, knowing what it's like on the other side?
mhm.
And what made me realize that I've got to stay here was because of what they told me. You must tell them there is no death. So that kind of made me realize, okay, John, this is what you're supposed to do. You're
Yeah.
supposed to tell anybody who will listen
Yeah.
that there really is no death. And that's what I've been doing. And that's why I'm so grateful for people like you that invite me onto their shows and I have a chance to tell people what I saw, to give people hope.
And I think like part of the reason I think they show it to all sorts of people. I think part of the reason they showed it to you is, maybe to show ordinary quote unquote people, although none of us are ordinary,
Yeah,
but wow, look, you don't have to be special to have such
exactly.
experience.
Yeah, if it happened to me, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now would you describe it as realer than here?
Oh, yes. It was what one thing I learned when I was there is that this is home.
Mhm.
This is where we come from. This is
Mhm.
this is our home. Earth is not our home. It's just a place we come to learn lessons. But it's not that's why I think so many of us have this longing in the pit of your stomach that you feel like there's more to this
Mhm.
than what I am experiencing.
Oh my God, yeah.
And one thing I've never understood is how they create, it's kind of like amnesia. When you come into a lifetime, you forget where you're from. There are a few people that have memories of what it's like before they come in.
Mhm.
But for the most part, all of us are kind of like we have amnesia. We don't remember where we're from.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is if you remembered where you're from, you wouldn't want to stay here
Mhm.
because it's so hard. It's so hard compared to what the other side is like.
Wow.
So that was, yeah, it was just a extraordinary experience.
Would you, when you went under hypnosis, um, and you saw the other lifetimes, was it as real experiencing it as it was when you were on the other side?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was almost like, for me, it was almost like watching a video on my forehead.
Wow.
It's like watching a movie. I could actually see it. And one of those lifetimes that I saw was, it was somewhere in Asia, and I was a villager, and I had a little hut, and there was smoke coming out of the top of the hut, and I had a wife, and I had several children. And I was kind of like a farmer in that lifetime. In all the lifetimes I saw, I wasn't anything like, I wasn't wealthy, I wasn't royalty. It was just, ordinary, regular lifetimes. And we choose to come in to learn many different types of lessons, all different kinds.
Mhm.
In the past lifetimes, you seem to have one major focus that you want to work on when you come in,
Hmm.
whether it's you want to learn more about compassion, or you want to love more, or you want to experience what it's like to lose somebody. All of these things, there seems to be one major theme that all of us have when we come into a lifetime. And when we have the life review at the end, we want to see how we did. Did
Mhm.
you accomplish, what you wanted to accomplish? Did you learn? And so, yeah, their past lifetimes are definitely real.
And you experienced it as real under hypnosis as you did on the other side?
Yep, absolutely.
And guys, we don't know if that's because he had an other side experience that it unlocked like that, or if it's for everybody that experiences hypnosis. But it definitely makes me want to give it a try, that's for sure.
I think anybody could do it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe. Now, speaking of your life review, did you find it? Now, guys, in part one, he describes a life review where he's in a room full of screens, like almost like a planetarium. Did you find that overwhelming?
It was a little overwhelming at first,
Okay.
because every screen was playing it. It was like seeing a different age,
Yeah.
and all in this circle were all the were movie screens, and they were all playing at the same time.
Yeah. It's a
It
lot.
wasn't it wasn't just one at one time. They were all playing.
Mm.
And I saw myself in a crib. I saw myself my first day of kindergarten. I saw myself playing soccer.
Mm.
I was a drummer when I was growing up, and one of the screens was showing me as when I was playing drums in school. It was overwhelming, but you can stay there as long as you want. And as you're watching these different screens, you're getting a sense of what you learned. What were you learning? What were you like? Were you developing? Did you accomplish the things you wanted to accomplish? And one of the things was, it's a big deal when you come into a lifetime because you learn so much.
Mhm.
And the part that was astounding to me, and I still don't understand how it works, is how that happened. How is that recorded?
Mhm.
Like when you have your life review,
Mhm.
you'll see everything about your life.
Mhm.
And how does that happen? I don't know. And I think it's just the fact that, we're here in earthly bodies. We don't have the same awareness and the same capabilities that we have when we're on the other side.
Mhm.
It was just like you said, it is overwhelming to see all of that, but
And
you
it was
can stay there as long as you want.
from third person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not.
And it was like watching a movie of your lifetime.
That's crazy. Now, the part where and again, this is in part one, guys, but um, the part where you found the scroll of
Mhm.
the calligraphy of your life, and
Yeah,
it scrunched up so you couldn't see it.
right.
And I've heard you speak of that before. I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if he, and then you mentioned it on on part one. I was wondering before you mentioned it, I wonder if, because I feel like it's scrunched up because your life wasn't done and you can't look yet.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my God, I wonder if that clued him in while he was in it. Like, oh my God, that means I have to go back, you know?
Yeah. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were gonna send me back. I think if I had a choice, I think I would have stayed
Okay. Good to
'cause
know.
I didn't wanna come back. You know
Yeah.
how you hear a lot of people who have near-death experience, they meet somebody in the tunnel, whether it's a loved one or a grandparent, and they're told they have to come back, they're not done yet.
Yeah.
I think that's why they sent me back so quickly, 'cause I would have said if they said to me, "Do you wanna stay or do you wanna go back?" I'd be, "No, I wanna stay here. I don't
Yeah.
wanna go back. I wanna stay here. This is wonderful." So I don't think they gave me a choice for that reason.
Yeah.
And the scroll, it did scrunch up like that, so I wasn't able to read it. All I could see was just that there was black writing. It looked like it was calligraphy, and the knowledge that we plan our lifetimes ahead of time before we come in,
Mhm.
and we put them on these scrolls. I don't know why we do that, but there just seems to be that kind of like when you plan when you have goals for your life, like a lot of times people will have goals on a New Year's resolution and they write them out so they can achieve their goals for the year.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do when we plan a lifetime. We have these different goals and things we want to learn, and you write them on these different scrolls. And when I look to my right inside that building, the one that had the dome on it and all around the pillars in a circle and all that, you could see people's scrolls on this wall. It was a huge, just full of scrolls, and everybody's scrolls are there, what
Mhm.
they want to accomplish, and they write them down. And I don't know the reason why we go to that one particular building for that. I don't know that, but we seem to go there when we want to plan our lifetime, and our guide helps us. And we don't have the same guide every single time. You have different guides as you have each different lifetime, and they're there to help you achieve what you want to achieve. So you have guides that have already learned what you want to learn, and so they help you with your lifetime. Like if you were going to have a lifetime to be a royalty, for example, you would have a guide who had experienced that in his or her lifetime before, and then
Okay.
they help you under go through your life and what you're going to plan for.
Yeah. Speaking of other lifetimes, I remember you mentioning we're there for eternity.
Mhm.
So this question is about to get real in depth, and I'm sure
Okay.
you know where it's going.
Sure.
I'm sure you know already where it's going. But basically, if we're there for eternity and we have all these different lifetimes, right? It's like, do we come back in it's like what body do we come back in? Like into like other side, Like um sorry, Zoom's just warning us, 10-minute warning.
Okay.
And guys, check out part three. But anyway, yeah. So do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's like say like my mom passed, right? Would she so she's up there because we're all up there, right? But then it's like when she comes back, say she goes into another lifetime since being my
Uh-huh.
mom, does she come back as my mom or does she come back as, uh, a stockbroker from Tokyo? Do you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Yeah.
One thing I can tell you for sure is that people who have crossed before you,
Mhm.
friends, family members, loved ones, they don't come back until you get to the other side to have the reunion.
That's
So
nice.
they're there, waiting for you, so they'll be there. Your
Oh,
mom will be there.
that's polite, like waiting for
But,
somebody.
yeah, 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 they do that because they wanna be there for the reunion. But when they come back into a lifetime, they don't look like they do on the other side.
Mhm.
On the other side, we can appear any way we want to, but normally we appear as God created us. We all look different, and I think that's why in the Bible, in Genesis, it says, um, we are created in the likeness and image of God. So we have our bodies are different when we come into a lifetime based on genetics and DNA.
Mhm.
So when I was in that building seeing past lifetimes, they didn't look anything like me now, but I knew that was me in a past life. You
Mhm.
just know that. And when you're on the other side, all of those learnings are part of your personality, part of your learning. Whereas on life on earth, when you're in a lifetime, the only experience you really have is your experience as you, as that person you are right now.
Mhm.
But when they're on the other side, you have all of your abilities back, all of your different awarenesses are back again.
Wow.
But your body here, when you come in, it's just strictly based on DNA and genetics of your parents.
Yeah.
But that was just neat to learn that they don't come back in until you get back. So
That is,
I know that when my aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, they're not going to come back until I get to see them when I cross. And even though it could be 80 years, for them it's only a very short period of time. And I don't know how many lifetimes people have.
yeah.
That I don't know. I do know that it's based on people's learning. Some people will have 10 lifetimes on earth. Some people might have 3.
Mm.
But it's just dependent upon how much you want to experience and how much you want to learn. Like, does a person want to go to college to get a bachelor's, or did they want to go to get a PhD? That's kind of how it's like on Earth.
Mhm.
But you got to remember too that Earth is only one place. It's only one planet where we can have lifetimes. People might have hundreds of lifetimes elsewhere in the universe,
Mhm.
but only have a certain number of lifetimes here.
Mhm.
So we just have to remember that Earth is not the only one.
Which is a relief.
Yes. I think, you know what, I don't wanna come back
Yeah.
here anyway. You know, I haven't had a it hasn't always been great,
Exactly.
and I think that's, what we can all say is that there are times that are just plain hard. This is a hard world, and it
Yeah.
takes a lot of effort just to get through it, and that's why I think the reunions are such a big deal for us when we get back.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of relief to hear, every time I hear Earth's the hardest planet and the density and all that, I'm like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God, it's not just me. Like,
Nope, no, it's not just you. It's definitely not just you. We all have tough times.
God. Um,
Yeah,
it's interesting, 5-minute warning, but it's
sure.
interesting because I've heard of people, someone's passed and then their baby will remember former lifetimes of the person that passed, right? Like as if it's them being reincarnated, which is
Yeah.
really cool. It's really cool. But then again, it's interesting because you said they usually wait. I'm wondering, I'm wondering if it's like the person they developed into and had extra lessons from as being down here is like they graduate and they go up and they're always there, but then maybe another part of their soul comes down. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah, I don't I've heard that before. I
yeah,
don't know anything about that.
yeah,
I can tell you something from personal experience about children, like you mentioned, babies and children sometimes have an awareness of where they're from.
yeah.
Our son, when he was about 3 or 4, my wife was playing with him in the family room, and he said something to her that was really extraordinary. He said, "Mama, my legs are supposed to be black." I thought, and I thought, really? He must have been remembering a past lifetime.
Hmm,
It's just an extraordinary thing, and
yeah,
he doesn't even remember now that he ever said that. But he
yeah.
said, "Mama, my legs were supposed to be black." So either he is black on the other side,
Uh-huh.
or he was remembering a lifetime where he was black. So that was just,
He
and
was
that's something
supposed to
that,
be.
wow, kids do remember things like that.
Yeah, or he was supposed to be maybe black and you guys adopt him, something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah, exactly.
and then he forgot that something changed. On the way or something.
Yep, exactly.
I do believe babies are born with like what I call like a wide open mind. And
I do
I
too.
as we get older, it's just more and more shaped, conditioned, programmed, whatever.
Exactly. We become conditioned. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because it's like, somehow as you come to understand, right? Catholicism or Christianity can be true, Jesus is true, and yet former lifetimes are true. And I
Yeah.
think I always kind of knew that in terms of a lot of things. So, aliens, I feel are true. And
Oh, I absolutely.
yeah, and I also feel everything else is true. So, but in some way, them being up there till we pass, and possibly people realizing their kid is the reincarnation of another one that just passed or whatever, is
Yeah.
also true. It's interesting. It's very in depth, you
Oh,
know?
it is. It is. And what I was surprised to learn is that there is a lot of detail. There's a lot of planning that goes into a lifetime. It's not just arbitrary. It's not an accident. You really plan. You plan the major lessons you want to learn. You plan the things, and the thing that was hard to understand at first was that it's the painful things you go through that teach you the most. Because on the other side, you don't have any painful breakups. You don't have the loss of a child. You don't have a bankruptcy. You don't have a divorce. None of those exist on the other side. That's only here. But when you get to the other end of that grief or that process, you realize that, wow, I have learned a lot. I've become more than I was for having gone through that. And there's two reasons. Number one is for your own growth, but you also go through painful things so you can help someone else go through it. That's the reason. One of
Yeah.
the one of the things I heard from Rick Warren, he's a pastor in LA, he said, "Don't waste your pain. Take your pain and help others get through theirs." So
Amazing.
that's one of the reasons we come here too.
Oh my God, absolutely amazing. Okay, Zoom is counting us down.
Okay.
Guys, make sure to catch us in part 3, where we can ask wonderful John even more in-depth, amazing questions in these soul transformative conversations. He's such a pleasure to have here. I'm so grateful, and I hope these conversations help you guys' heart and soul find hope, expand your mind and soul, and really set yourself free. So guys, make sure to check out part 3. It's going to be amazing, and hope to see you soon.